he's destined to succeed. And I was a hustler.
That's good to know. And, you know, I finished your book, and I watch a lot
All
of your
63
interviews.
pages of it.
The book is, but you know what? The one part in your book with the edge,
Yeah.
I think every entrepreneur needs to read.
No, it's
that.
true.
Literally, I think every entrepreneur, even if it's just the edge part.
Well, that's why I made it so short and sweet, right? I want people to see stories. I wanted people to see, you know, that if I can do it, they can do it. And I didn't want to get them all bogged down in, you know, this little story or that little story and try to sound smart or be smart. I figured, you know, the things that have worked for me and the things that I use to motivate myself, if I keep it short and sweet, people would actually read it. And, you know, I get comments all the time. This is the first book I've read in years, and I read it all in one sitting, and that was my goal.
And it gets a lot done in the one sitting.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
the
something
idea.
that gets a lot done in one sitting. Okay.
And for $4, you can afford it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you haven't read about it, if you're watching, you got to get the book. It's one of the action items at the end. Mark, so question. I read the story, you know, the whole $7,500 ring, the $83,000 to $85,000, the whole,
Right.
you know, the motley 18-year-old and then the 16-year-old,
16-year-old,
plus
yeah.
all that stuff that you have. But I'm curious, if you and I were buddies in high school, say we're 14 years old, 15 years old, and we know each other, would I bet on you being who you are today?
No chance.
Really?
No chance.
Tell me why.
I mean, I had my good friends, and you know, we hung out, and I was a hustler. There's no question I was a hustler. And
Even in high school?
Oh yeah, and into business in a big way. But I don't think people saw it in me. It wasn't like people looked at me and go, oh, he's destined to succeed. I'll show you a picture of me in high school when we leave. I'm not gonna let you take a picture of it, and you'll see why.
Really? Now you got everybody curious. You wanted to see the
then
picture?
you can describe it, but yeah, I'll show it to you. But yeah, I'm not gonna let you put it on camera.
No worries. We will not do that. So in high school, you were the fun guy. Were you always the guy that made people laugh? Were you very competitive? Were you the sports
I was
guy?
always
Were you the
competitive.
technology guy?
I was into sports. I wasn't great at it. I was just decent. Wasn't a technology guy. I mean, I was into learning. I was a business guy. I was the guy reading about business all the time, reading business books all the time. You know, going to junior achievement. I was a junior achievement geek.
Why though? Why were you reading business books?
Because that's what I knew. I mean, I was wired that I always, you know, I started my first business when I was 12. I was buying and selling baseball cards, buying and selling stamps, anything I could do to make money. I was hustling and trying to do. So I was into business, but I not so much where it was. All my friends were into it with me, so they wouldn't know.
Baseball cards.
Yeah, baseball cards, you name it. I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and so I would, probably even less than 12 years old, I would, go out and buy a bunch of baseball cards that I collected, and I would package, I would say, okay, you're guaranteed to have a Pittsburgh Pirate in this package, and I would charge 3 times as much, and I'd set up on this park bench down in the park down in Scott Township where I grew up, and I'd have these little sales. And it was great. I made money, and I mean, it was, you know, and I learned as much about business when I was 9, 10, and 12 as I learned any other time.
I'm obsessed with baseball cards. Do you still, is there any that you
No,
really,
I wish I
really
still
like,
did.
or no?
No, I wish I still had them, but they're all long gone. I gave them to my brother, who knows what happened from there.
Something about cards, man. I don't know what it is. You explain it to somebody, they think you're nuts.
Well,
but
back
there
then, that was how you
something-
learned. Yeah, back then, that's how you had your favorite players, and you know, you didn't see, they weren't on TV every day. You only read about them in the newspaper. There was no internet, and so baseball cards were a way to connect. You know, I had my Willie Stargell, I had my Roberto Clemente cards.
So you're talking about
way back when, yeah.
God, there was no Beckett back then, right?
Yeah,
So
Beckett was just getting started, right? So,
Got it.
you know, I didn't look at it more, I looked at it just, hey, this is the home affinity. It wasn't like, okay, these were going to be valuable at some point. So, yeah, but it was just, you know, it was just a means.
yeah, now that you have the Hannes Wagner card,
I
estimated
could,
3 to
you know, I
4
thought
million.
about, yeah.
That'd
yeah.
be a cool card to
Yeah,
have,
but
man.
just look around you, right? I mean, I got stuff. I'm just not into like, I'm not a big collector type guy.
Well, I got you a gift, man. I'm going to give it to you at
appreciate
the end. I wanted to get you something. What can I get this guy? You may have it, but I hope you don't have
I
it
have
and
5
you
of
like
them,
it.
but I
So
hope I'm
I
looking forward to it.
probably have 5 of them. So let's get into entrepreneurship a little bit. We already have, but going into it now to focus on that a little bit. What would you say, out of all the reasons in the world, and I've read your book, you have the 10, all these keys to success, etc. What would you say is the number one reason why people fail? Not necessarily why they make it, the complete opposite.
Right, lack of brains, lack of effort.
Lack of brains, lack of effort.
Yeah, they don't do the work. They don't learn, when you walk in the room, when you start a business and you start to talk about somebody, you're never in a vacuum with no competition. unless you're just extremely lucky. And if there's going to be competition, that means somebody else knows your business as well as you do when you get started. And if you walk into a competitive environment and they still know more about the business than you do and more about your customers, you're going to lose. But most people don't consider that. They don't do the work. They don't learn more about their industry. They don't know even about their business. I mean, and so you've got to put in the effort to know more about your industry than anybody else. And that's the brains part, and that's the effort part as well. Because look, if you're competing with me, you better know what you're doing. Otherwise, I'm going to kick your ass, and you're not going to outwork me. And so, the combination is usually what kills businesses early on more than anything.
Do you think so? Now, there's a part that people say, Mark made it because Mark is a special guy and he became an entrepreneur. This guy made it, all these guys made it because they have this special gene or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a proven formula that if a brand rookie guy, he's got a lot of ambition, he's got a lot of desire, but not a lot of knowledge and how to, do you think if he follows a formula, he's guaranteed to make it as an entrepreneur?
No.
Okay, so you don't believe there's a guarantee to make it?
No, because who knows who you're going to be competing with? So if you put two people both following the same formula, both in the same industry, right? Which one wins? Maybe they both can win and both be successful, but so I don't think there's a default template for success, but I think there's things that you can do to put yourself in the best position to succeed. So I talk about stuff in the book. I talk about the one thing in business you can control is effort. Mm-hmm. Going out there and sales, curing all. So I think and I agree with your point that there are things that if you do them, you put yourself in the best position to succeed. But if you just walk into a buzzsaw and somebody else is doing them a little bit better, it happens.
Now, are you saying to compete at your level, there's no way?
Or just any level, right? Just any level.
So even if you put a formula for me, I followed it. Will I eventually be able to make $250,000 a year if I follow the plan that you put? I'm not talking about 100 million.
Yeah, but you got to pick where too, right?
Right.
So I was
industry-wise,
right?
maybe?
Yeah, I was at a business plan competition, and they were talking about making big money reselling travel plans and making $3 in affiliate commissions, right? It's just not going to happen. You have to be smart.
Point.
You have to be smart. You can pick the wrong things. And, you're talking, alluding to it earlier about entrepreneurs being born or built, and I think I knew I was wired to be excited about business. How or why, I don't know. But, and there's certain guys that have the genetics to jump out of the gym, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. There's certain guys, that, when they golf, they have the muscle memory and the discipline. Dirk Nowitzki may not be the most talented guy in the NBA, but his discipline and his focus to do what's necessary to be successful, he's willing to do, and combine it with being 7 feet tall and being skilled, it makes him an amazing basketball player. So it's understanding what your skill set is, finding the right place to use those skills, and then going for it. Will that make you $250,000? It depends if you pick the right industry. But whatever industry you pick, if you outwork everybody, if you try to be a little smarter than everybody, if you try to be a better salesperson than everybody, if you try to be better prepared than everybody, you've got your best chance. Because if you don't do it and somebody else does, I have the saying, work like someone's trying to take it all away from you.
Mm-hmm.
I actually work like
mm-hmm.
someone's spending 24 hours, working 24 hours to take it all away from you. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the way I look at it.
When you were younger, was your father into business? Was your mother? Was there an uncle, somebody that did well in business that you admire? Was there somebody you read about that you said, I like Rockefeller, I like Carnegie? Nothing. So it's just purely you that you had business?
Yeah, my dad, I think, my dad did upholstery on cars. My mom did whatever odd jobs. But my dad was always like, if you want something, you have to earn it. And to his credit, he never said, no, you can't do that. So whether it was selling garbage bags, baseball cards, stamps, whatever it was, he never held me back. And so I think that was as important as anything. And sometimes being young and trying things, you're so naive and you don't know any better. All you do is learn. And if you fail, it doesn't matter. And so whether I was 9, 10, 12, 16, 21, the failures were irrelevant. And whether you're 9, 12, 16, 21, 22, 24, I'm sleeping on the couch. I have a car with a hole in the floorboard. I'm living like a bum and like a student. And so what did I have to lose? And so I think that influenced me as much as anything. So it was, my dad was like, go for it. Why not? What have you got to lose? You have to sleep on a different couch. So I think that was motivation as much as anything.
So you had the encouragement from father saying, support, go do it.
Yeah, go do it.
So do you think, like, let's just say if we put 10 guys here, you interview them, okay? you could within a 5-10 minute interview say this dude's not going to make it as an entrepreneur? Could you pretty much know that?
I'm not very
has it
good
or
at
doesn't have it?
interviewing. The issue is my interview skills more than
Really?
I'm horrible at
Isn't
it.
Shark Tank interviewing though?
Well, yeah, it is, but I get to do due diligence after the fact, right? So I get to play my henches, but I get to check. Yeah, I mean, I can typically tell, right? I can tell, but by their passion, I can tell by their focus, I can tell by their preparation. There's a whole realm of things in any business. Here's the business you're in, and here's 1,000 things that influence whether or not you're going to be successful. And really, to me, by through my experience in businesses, I can put myself in his position and say, okay, here are 900 of the 1,000 things he has to be aware of, and then go through and ask. And by how many of those or her issues they've been able to address already, that kind of gives me a sense of how hard they're willing to work. And I can tell by the questions they ask me. So all I have to do is say, okay, what do you want to know? And when they start saying, what should I do?
They ask you.
Yeah, and that's fine, right? And I want them to ask questions, but people like to say, the only stupid questions are the ones you don't ask, and that's not right, right? Because the questions you ask tell whoever more about you than anything else you do. Because in particular, it tells me about your preparation. If you ask me questions about just basic things that you should have known and you should have down to a science, that's going to disqualify you almost more than anything.
I read the cyber that you sent out, by the way.
But the questions,
I said, man, I got to get the questions right with this guy.
It's true. Right,
so I read it. I said, okay, I'll take that as a challenge.
And that's what Cyber Dust I'll blast out, like when I have a thought.
That was
right?
great.
Yeah.